Independent campaigner Bob Hudson says under the new legislation, land once classified as residential will now be rezoned as restricted development areas. These homeowners may not be able to build extensions and will even need to seek council's permission to renovate. Mr Hudson says banks are already refusing loans to applicants whose land has been labelled as dangerous. Councillor Tony Sampson says the new policy was in response to an increase in development applications. Mr Sampson reassured locals that council would reconsider the proposal.
Even the Japanese women's softball squad were getting into Australiana on our National Day, touring the country playing matches as a lead-up to the South Pacific Softball Classic in Sydney in April. The 21 players experienced Aussie hospitality off the field as well. The opportunity to see and touch our native animals at Blackbutt Reserve appeared popular with our guests. This afternoon at Stevenson Park, it was down to business. The Japanese squad played 2 games against a combined Newcastle Lake Macquarie team. These matches gave local players a chance to test themselves against international competition. While on their 12-day tour, the Japanese side will play other regional associations and the Australian Institute of Sport softball squad. With Australia ranking 4th and Japan 5th in the world, the tour gives both countries match practice before the world titles in Canada in July. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Lightning strikes have the potential for destroying anything in their way. Power lines are an easy target, the damage instantly cutting commercial and household supplies.
It's about 40% of all our problems on our transmission lines are weather related, so lightning is a big problem to us.
Shortland Electricity is using a special system which detects within 1 kilometre the exact location of a ground strike.
Well, on the screen here, the different colours show us an hour of data at any one time. So the different colours enable us to get an idea of which way the storm is coming from, and also whether it's increasing or decreasing in intensity.
There are 6 receivers across the state that pick up special waves from lightning strikes. They're connected to a satellite which provides the data. Not only the program help electricity workers quickly locate problem areas, it also acts as a warning system.
This system helps by giving us pre-warning of storm fronts that are coming, and it enables us to position our staff in the correct locations to speed up response time.
Meanwhile, Newcastle University's commercial arm Tanra has just secured a lucrative contract to upgrade an Indonesian international communications carrier near Jakarta. The $400,000 deal will result in modifications to extend the antenna's life and tracking ability. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
There's no doubt 74-year-old Jack Russell is an Aussie character. He's lived alone in this house for 8 years. About midnight last night, the pensioner was shocked by an unexpected visitor.
I was having a feed in here, biscuits now. I looked up and there's a bloody bloke with a mask on him right down over his face.
The intruder bashed Mr Russell over the shoulder with a piece of timber, knocked him to the ground, grabbed his wallet and tied him up.
I said, you got any money, you may as well kill me now out of the road. I said, you may as well kill me.
Neighbours heard a noise and called the police. The intruder escaped with $2,000, money Jack says he won having a bet. Jack doesn't believe in banks and has a habit of flashing his money around at the local pub, and plenty of people were aware that he had cash at home. Jack's estranged wife, who lives down the road, is worried about her husband living on his own.
I don't like the idea of him staying here on his own.
It's too dangerous?
But he wants to live on his own, so what can I do about it?
Joyce says she will organise something, especially in regard to putting his money in a safe place. Meanwhile, police are hoping for any information from the public to help in catching this cowardly attacker.
We're currently looking for a gentleman who's only described as about 190 centimetres tall and wearing a black balaclava with an Australian accent.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
This is about as close as the East Maitland Cricket Club can get to using their new facilities. 18 months ago, the club was awarded $49,000 in federal funding to develop the first stage of training nets, a cricket oval and amenities on grounds selected by council. But in August last year, it was discovered the site was contaminated with tar residue. It's believed the substance may be toxic and flowed onto the paddocks as runoff from the now disused gasworks site. Since then, the grounds have laid idle and time is running out. The government is unlikely to grant another extension and the money will be lost.
They're going to lose a major regional sporting facility, and forever hearing about the sporting facilities in Maitland that they're not of regional character but rather they're of local government character, this is an opportunity to pull together a deal which will give us the best cricket practice facilities outside Sydney.
Maitland Council this week approved spending thousands for testing to determine if the ground can be made safe, but the results take at least 6 to 8 weeks. By then, the grant will be no longer available.
Every day goes by, the time frame between when it should happen and when we hope that it does happen sort of narrows and puts greater pressure on the project coming to reality.
The cricket club are pressuring the council to speed up the results so they can start some sort of earthworks and retain the government money.
Last year, New South Wales recorded epidemic rates of mumps, measles, whooping cough and rubella. This year, the State Health Department hopes to reduce the alarming figures. An estimated 64,000 students will begin kindergarten next week. All are required to have the new immunisation certificate.
In the past, there have been no requirements in terms of immunisation for children attending schools or kindergartens, and we've taken this step to really get people to think seriously about their immunisation history for their children.
7 infectious diseases are being targeted, including polio, diphtheria and tetanus.
We imagine that these things are diseases of the past, and it just goes to show if our immunisation levels are not adequate, then these are the kinds of problems that we create.
The certificate, issued by family doctors and community health centres, will be kept by the school. If parents refuse to immunise their children against certain diseases, an incomplete certificate will be issued. Should an infectious outbreak occur, some children could be asked to stay home.
What we're really trying to do is to reduce the pool of unimmunised children who are in a particular kindergarten. We're really hopefully increasing the pool of immunised children that we have in the community, basically.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The Westpac rescue helicopter is called out at least twice a day to assist people in all manner of life-threatening situations. But the life-saving capacity of the service was limited when it came to emergencies involving water.
The helicopter's always had an extensive over-water rescue capability, but to date it's had a very limited underwater rescue capability.
Scenarios requiring the team of divers could include a capsized boat, a submerged vehicle or a diver in difficulty. Two members of the Hunter Ports Authority diving team, Greg Wiseman and Peter Tierman, will be available on a 24-hour basis.
The divers can be contacted 365 days of the year, and they're on a 5-minute call out, and we can pick them up either on the port or here at the base with the equipment stowed.
Liz Rogers, NBN News.
The 5-year review has provided a user's guide to the state's 721 beaches. Rips, currents and sandbars were mapped and sediment samples tested. Ease of access and the facilities available were also taken into consideration before giving each beach a ranking between 1 and 10. Murdering Gully Beach in Newcastle has been given a 10, but that's not good news for swimmers. The high ranking places it as one of the most dangerous beaches in the state. Murdering Gully is next to a sewage outlet. The beach just around the headland from Merewether is popular with surfboard riders, but it's not patrolled by lifesavers.
I think the message loud and clear out of this whole report is make sure you swim at a patrol beach between the red and yellow flags, and I think you'll be right.
The least dangerous beaches have also been identified in Newcastle and Lake Macquarie.
The safer beaches are probably Stockton, Nobbies in most weather conditions. Merewether through to Cooks Hill can be a beach which in bad weather conditions blows up. Swansea, Belmont, Blacksmith Beach is a safe beach.
The data collected will be used by the Surf Lifesaving Association to better use its resources, particularly the lifesavers. While most girls in their late teens are finding their place in the workforce or studying, the 5 members of Girlfriend are climbing the charts. Their first album sold 100,000 copies. Their second has just gone gold.
Really amazing, our success. We didn't know what would happen with Girlfriend, and all of a sudden our singles started doing really well, and it all happened really fast, but we worked hard for it.
The teenagers have recently returned from a tour of China. Today they performed in Newcastle on their way around Australia.
Leg side, 18 boundaries coming in that 150. Included in that some very good cut shots, some very good drives on the offside. A lot of good leg side shots.
It's a tough innings from Stephen Waugh.
The field started in spectacular fashion. Without a breath of breeze about, the boats screamed towards the first marker, confident they didn't have to worry about receiving a gust capable of flipping them. Craig Bailey and his Hamilton Marine boat moved into the lead with ease, and at times the only thing holding him in the water was the propeller. With Bailey well clear of the pack, the remainder of the field was left to scramble and jostle for position. With just one lap left to go, Neil Hancock's boat caught fire, but instead of swimming away, Hancock tried to open the cowling so fire crews could get at the flames. It worked and the boat was saved from any major structural damage. Bailey finished a clear winner and happy to take the championship points. And at Shelley Beach on the Central Coast, they weren't going anywhere near as fast, but all the visiting American lifeguards saw was the backs of the Central Coast team in the inaugural Test match. The visitors are all fully professional lifeguards from California and were confident of team didn't quite stick to the script, winning every event. Avoca's Darren Miller won the Ironman and was nearly 2 minutes ahead of the first American, Randy Ikoff. Yamaina's Jodie Young repeating the thrashing in the ladies' event. Despite training with much the same boards and skis as they do in the States, the Americans lost plenty of ground on the craft legs.
We don't have such large carnivals to compete in, and so many of our top competitors do every event. So they don't become real proficient at one event, they have to become proficient at all of the events.
However, the visitors aren't brooding over the loss. They intend to take plenty of knowledge back home.
We don't have the competitive manufacturers, so we've come over with virtually no equipment, purchased all new equipment over here to return home with us to help increase our stock of equipment.
There was activity aplenty in the centre's commercial kitchen today. Although the centre won't receive its first students for another 2 weeks, the kitchen has been a hot pot of activity since the start of December. It's been providing 6,000 meals a week for Catholic Care of the Aged facilities in the Port Macquarie area. Students doing the Industry Studies Hospitality course at MacKillop Senior College and St Joseph's Vocational College will gain experience in the kitchen. Another designed especially for the 60 or more students is located in an adjacent room.
I think the students will respond tremendously. Once you put them into a situation where they are experiencing real work, they seem to recognise that it's not just school, that this is the real thing.
The Hospitality Training Centre in Ocean Drive also incorporates a function room where students will be able to test their skills. The facility is one of 20 centres in the state being used to trial the new industry-linked study course for HSC students.
I think it's really showing that schools can develop links with industry and broaden those opportunities for students.
The proposal by the Free Beach Association of New South Wales calls for coastal councils to set aside special areas for nude bathing. It's already causing much debate in the Kempsey area. While some councillors see merits in the plan, some community groups have spoken out against the idea, concerned it may offend other beachgoers and encourage exhibitionism and perverts. But in Port Macquarie, the issue has received less exposure, with Hastings Council shying away from the proposal. A council committee decided not to permit nude bathing on beaches controlled by council.
They just sort of dealt with the report and resolved it, and there was very little discussion.
Council acknowledged that for those wanting to bear all in Port, Miners Beach is known locally as the place to go. This beach is under the control of the National Parks and Wildlife Service. Council moved to refer the matter of nude bathing at Miners Beach to National Parks. Selena Buresti, NBN News.
The smoke-logged overalls and sweaty brows of those who'd faced a bushfire emergency in Lake Macquarie were swapped for clean uniforms and smiling faces at the dinner organised to say thanks and help re-equip units whose resources had been stretched to the limit. Volunteers and regional commanders stood shoulder to shoulder fighting the worst fires seen in the area, among those holding the floor with first-hand accounts and votes of gratitude to all those who'd done their bit during the crisis. Bushfire Services Chief Bob Hatton and New South Wales Fire Brigade's Deputy Regional Commander John Craig. The Mayor of Lake Macquarie, John Kilpatrick, presented commemorative plaques to firefighters. Master of Ceremonies, NBN Sport presenter and volunteer firefighter Darren Curtis got on with the business of fundraising. Raffles and auctions raised around $20,000. The Lake Macquarie City Council is holding a thank you picnic for firefighters and their families at Spears Point Park on the 20th of February. Diabetes mellitus, a disease which impairs the body's use of sugar, occurs in 1 in every 1,000 children. Most have to undergo painful blood tests at least 4 times a year, or even several times a day when under treatment. Now the syringe has given way to a tiny jab, which delivers just a drop of blood for testing in an analysis machine. Where waiting for lab results can take hours or days, the new machine takes only 10 minutes for a diagnosis.
We'll have an immediate result, and then the doctors can decide on the spot whether any changes needed to medication.
The $4,000 machine was donated to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital by the local branch of Diabetes Australia. Another of the machines set up at Royal Newcastle Hospital for the use of older people ensures a continuity of care for diabetics second to none.
They have the same doctors all the way through. There's continuity of care. They don't have to suddenly go from a paediatric setting to a big, adult hospital where they're scared because they don't know people. And this way, the continuity of care is continued in the Hunter. And I think that's a really major advantage that we have over the major cities.
The race was on for the Top Gun grape picker. A team of girls beat the boys, and then it was time to take on the harvesting machine. With a bit of support from some dubious judging, the machine was beaten. The age-old traditional hand-picking methods coming up trumps. Also on the winners list, the Aussie wine industry with new EEC markets after an historic agreement was signed yesterday following years of negotiations. It's a multi-million-dollar boost for our exports.
Now we've got this target of $1 billion in export earnings for the industry by the year 2000. This makes that a lot more achievable.
But it's not without a cost. The local industry will now have to drop French names from their wines, so there is no more champagne or Burgundy. But according to Bruce Tyrrell from the Hunter Valley Vineyards Association, that's not a problem. Aussie wines should have Aussie names.
Jacob's Creek's the biggest selling imported red wine product in the UK. Long Flat Red, Queen Adelaide, all those things, those names are going to come forward, and I think that's all part of our identity as Australian winemakers.
Kerry Patterson was arrested yesterday by detectives investigating the December murder of 24-year-old Nicholas Cummer. Mr Cummer's body was found on a remote property at Lower Wonga near Gympie, 160 kilometres north of Brisbane. He'd been shot. The windows of the shed where he lived had been blasted with gunfire. Kerry Patterson is the 4th person to be charged with his murder. The other 3 were arrested in Queensland on the 21st of December. All have been remanded in custody.
As a young boy, Scott Harmon used to shy away from his grandfather's horses. Now he's planning to base his future career working with them. After completing a 12-month traineeship in horse management at Scone TAFE, Scott was nominated and then selected for the Upper Hunter Blood Horse Breeders' Scholarship. Next week, he flies to Kildare in Ireland, where he'll work and train at the Irish National Stud.
It's stable hand, just mucking out boxes, working with brood mares and foals. In the night time we do a seminar, an hour seminar and talk and that, yeah.
With his airfares and accommodation taken care of, Scott plans to use the experience to gain some international knowledge.
They do different things with their mares and foals. They lead both mare and foal, whereas we only lead the mare here and the foal follows. And just the weather, it can get a lot cooler over there than it is here.
Scott will be the only representative from Australia at the stud and believes the opportunity can only help bring him one step closer to his dream.
I'm manager of a bigger stud around Scone.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. The thoroughbred horse industry is worth billions of dollars a year. The studs around Scone in the Hunter Valley representing the largest horse breeding area in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, Scone's got the runs on the board. We produce the best horses in Australia. That's a fact, and that's pretty widely accepted throughout Australia and throughout the world.
With final plans approved, work will soon begin on a $4.2 million equine centre west of Scone. Adjacent to the town's new racetrack, the TAFE complex will teach all aspects of horse care, including training, handling and management, filling a growing need for technical expertise.
Things like nutrition, what's being tried overseas, what things are working as far as handling horses are concerned, what things are working as far as feeding horses to young horses to get the best athlete at the end.
With construction expected to be completed by the end of next year, the new centre will attract up to 1,000 students, resulting in a healthy boost for the local economy. And for horse breeders, the Equine Centre will provide a valuable training ground for those entering the industry.
The obvious benefit to them is in having better trained personnel to look after the many millions of dollars of thoroughbred flesh that there is about on the studs here.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
They took years to build and only minutes to cover. In danger of closing down because nobody was hiring the courts anymore, the club has decided to turn them into a synthetic surface.
It just got to such a stage that we couldn't carry on. The maintenance was just too much. They were affected in the earthquake and they've never really recovered since then.
The new base is made from a byproduct of BHP. The slag is high in silicon and compacts well once it's been wet, and after a while it sets as hard as concrete.
It will absorb the water, where the concrete won't. So we're expecting to be able to play on these sort of courts a quarter of an hour or so after it rains.
It took 2 weeks to grade the slag into a perfectly level playing surface. A team of carpet layers then moved in to finish off the job. Even the court lines are plastic carpet. To try and keep the pile as firm as the day it's laid, tons of sand is brushed in to hold the fibre in place. It's expected the new courts will be ready for play by Monday.
Agnes Mackie is 105 today. Although happy to celebrate with friends at Allendale Nursing Home in Cessnock, the sprightly great-grandmother would, like most of us, prefer to have a few less runs on the board. You say you prefer to be 103, not 105. Why is that?
Oh, it sounds better.
Born in Windigate, Scotland, Agnes married at 19, shortly afterwards moving to the Cessnock area with her coal mining husband. Having seen 2 world wars, kings, queens and prime ministers come and go, Agnes could be considered an authority on life and longevity. What's your secret for long life? What's kept you going all this time? Is there a special mixture you drink every morning?
No, I never drink anything. I'm just a tea drinker, that's all.
Billed as a revolutionary way of destroying medical waste, it microwaves the garbage instead of using high-temperature incineration. However, since a successful 3-month trial at the John Hunter Hospital, complaints have been received about the smell from the unit.
Some people describe it as a dead cow. Some people describe it as a septic.
Gary Woods leases part of the Cardiff industrial site to Cleanaway to house the unit. He runs his own business in the adjacent building. Brian Gilligan from the Environment Protection Authority says Woods isn't the only person to have voiced concerns about the odour.
There was certainly quite a lot last year, and we took action. We issued an infringement notice and fined the company for not effectively controlling its odours.
The EPA says the emission isn't dangerous, and Cleanaway plans to move its operation to Kooragang Island within a couple of months.
We've recognised that there are some limitations with the Cardiff site, and that the Kooragang Island site will have buffer zones in a much better situation.
They are moving, but how do we survive, this business survive between now and then?
Cleanaway wasn't prepared to comment on the situation. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
"17 young women lined up at Garden City Shopping Centre in Newcastle last night, anxiously awaiting the announcement of this year's Newcastle Showgirl. While each of the contestants addressed the audience, judges had the task of rating the women on such criteria as personality and general knowledge. The Lochinvar Lasses selection makes it a double for her family. In 1980, Susan's sister Judy was named Maitland Showgirl before going on to be crowned Royal Easter Showgirl. Susan, who turns 21 on Tuesday and is studying economics at Newcastle University, is also a notable equestrian, her aim to compete at the Sydney Olympics. This year's runner-up was 22-year-old Marianne Witt of Newcastle. Marianne and Susan will now go on to the regional finals at Rylstone on February 12th. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.